I had two remarkably powerful experiences, little moments, but moments that are going to stick with me over the course of this last week. In fact, they were all connected to my Wednesday, which was a conversion and heading straight from that conversion to a funeral. First, a story about the person who became Jewish. I met the candidate for conversion, Randy Masui, for the first time in person at his Beit Din, at his conversion ceremony. That's because he became my student from the South Island of Japan 2 years ago and studied with me online over the course of a significant period of time, who has now become a regular attendee in the minyan in his synagogue in Los Angeles, which requires him to wake up at 2 a.m. to daven, so you have no excuse not to get here at 9:30. Just for good measure, he and his wonderful wife Leah often tune in for a piece of this service as well. So Randy and Leah, if you're watching, I'm going to embarrass you. Randy's a remarkable human being, a cancer survivor, and a true humble mensch. And in the Beit Din, in the panel of rabbis who asked him to tell his story, when we asked him what drew him to Judaism, one of the things that he reflected on was he said, growing up in his experience of a traditional Japanese culture, he was drawn to Judaism for its individualism. And I thought that was interesting because we Jews talk about ourselves very much as a communal people. We put a lot of emphasis on being a communal people, that we only pray in a minyan, in a collection of 10 other Jews, that we phrase most of our prayers, even quite personal prayers, in the plural, because we are all wrapped up in one another. And here he is at the Beit Din saying what draws him to Judaism is its individualism. And I thought for a moment, oi, I'm a bad teacher. He didn't get it at all of this time. And he said, it's not what you think. I know Judaism is all about the community. I know it so much that I wake up at 2 a.m. to join with the community in the way that I can. But what impresses me about this people is that even as you're all together, you are also all individuals. Even as you enter in collectively into this expression of Judaism, you each do it in your own particular way. He said, in my culture, in my experience of my culture, we strive for uniformity. We strive to all be doing the same thing. And he said, Judaism introduced me to a beautiful communal chaos. A beautiful communal chaos where we can all be sitting in the room and all of us, myself especially, singing on a different key. Where we can all of us be gathered together and some of us are reading all the words in the book and some of us are thinking about how many minutes till lunch and some of us are chasing kids in the childcare room and some of us are schmoozing over coffee. But here we all are on a Shabbos morning, together and also individual, communal, and also gloriously and entirely ourselves. I went from this incredible conversion ceremony for Randy, and I drove down from Los Angeles to Pacific View Cemetery in Newport Beach. Got there just in the nick of time. There was, as always, more traffic than expected. And I got the opportunity to perform a funeral service for Carol Beitcher, a longtime member of CBI, 20 years, who passed away at 87 and a half years old this week. I only got the chance to meet Carol 3 times. I met her once just on the phone. I tried to reach out to all of our elders in the community before high holidays and had a nice conversation with her. A second time in person when she was already in a hospital room, but still sharp as a tack and told me life stories for an hour and a half. And a third time just a few days ago when all she could do was squeeze my hand as we said final prayers. In that long gathering we had in the hospital room, Carol talked to me about her love of Judaism, maybe most of all. She talked about her commitment to Jewish learning. She talked about when she, as a young widow in her 20s, went to the day school principal in Denver, Colorado, and offered to wash dishes in the kitchen in exchange for tuition for her kids to be able to attend a Jewish school and get a Jewish education. She talked about her passion for the underdog and her view that the Jewish people have been the underdogs in history and the importance, the critical, crucial importance of our survival, so much so that it brought tears to her eyes. And after this long, extended conversation about the beauty of Judaism and its depth and significance, I needed to take my leave from Carol, and so I said, would you like to say a prayer together? Maybe a prayer for healing, maybe just the Shema. And she narrowed her eyes and looked at me, and she said, I don't go for those old superstitions. I love it. I love it. She talked literally in her deathbed for 45 minutes about her love of Judaism, and when offered the chance to say the Shema, she said, Ugh, Bubba Maisa. I don't do that. Bye, Rabbi, see you later. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's this being a part of this community, this tribe, which has traveled together over history for 3,000 years, for which you can feel the most intense and deep and profound pride, and also feel that certain parts of that tradition are entirely nonsense that you want nothing to do with. Isn't that amazing? That we can be unified but not uniform. That we can be as one but not the same. That's, to me, the brilliance of centering our tradition on the Torah story that we read this morning that was so beautifully chanted for us, the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel. And Jacob in that encounter gets a new name. His name becomes Yisrael, the God wrestler. And we Jews are never called, very rarely called, B'nai Avraham, the children of Abraham, and we're never called B'nai Yitzhak, the children of Isaac, but we are all the time called B'nai Yisrael. In fact, I saw the name on the building. We are the children of God wrestlers. That's how we center our identity. How can a people dedicated to wrestling be uniform? Each of our wrestling matches is a little bit different. Each of our encounters with the holy, our sacred struggles, changes us in slightly different ways because we are each individuals, and yet we travel as this tribe, as this family, as this eternal people over these thousands of years together. The one and the many, the community and the individual, unified but never uniform. We're a couple of weeks away from Hanukkah. In the book of Maccabees, we read that Antiochus, the villain of the Hanukkah story, the Syrian-Greek generalissimo in charge of the land of Israel, issues a decree to his people in which he says, if we are to be one nation, we must all practice the same religion and keep the same ways. Any deviation from the national way of doing things is to be punishable by death. Antiochus' great sin, and the great sin of all of those who have hated our people and other peoples over the course of history, is a confusion, I believe, between the concept of unity and uniformity. A belief that in order to be one, we need to be the same. In order to be together, we need to erase difference. And Judaism stands, I believe, in living testimony as the children, the great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren who once wrestled with God and continue to wrestle with God, stands in living testimony to the idea that it is possible to be unified and not uniform. In fact, that's the glorious, beautiful chaos that makes this such an extraordinary tribe that's had such an extraordinary impact in history. I want to bless us each and all that if we identify with this people, that we take upon ourselves responsibility to carry in the world the message that to be unified doesn't require being uniform. That we can stand for our own uniqueness, for our own values, for our own identity. That we can be Jews and human beings on our own terms, glorious in our diversity. And we can also link arms with one another and say, not even in spite of, but in light of our beautiful difference, what an extraordinary family we make. Shabbat Shalom.